At 12:23 a.m. on May 16, 2025, 10 inmates escaped from the Orleans Parish Prison in New Orleans, Louisiana. They exploited faulty locks to exit their cells, removed a toilet and sink unit, and cut through horizontal bars behind the toilet to access a hole used for plumbing. Above the hole, they left graffiti reading, "Too easy lol," and "We innocent." The escapees fled through a loading dock, scaled a wall, and ran across Interstate 10. Their absence was discovered at 8:30 a.m. during a routine head count, approximately 7 hours after the escape. Authorities believe the escape may have involved assistance from jail staff, as surveillance footage was not actively monitored during the incident. 3 jail employees have been suspended pending investigation. As of May 19, 2025, 3 of the escapees have been recaptured, while 7 remain at large. The incident has prompted scrutiny of the jail's infrastructure and staffing, with officials citing defective locks and inadequate conditions as contributing factors. The escape has raised concerns about the facility's security and the potential for internal complicity in the jailbreak. Who helped them escape? Why were these specific inmates chosen? And what chilling discoveries were made when the first fugitive was captured? This is the real story behind the Too Easy escape, complete with corruption, betrayal, and a mastermind hiding in plain sight. Over the minutes, you'll hear from the people who were inside the jail the night it happened. You'll hear about the guard who claimed he was off shift, but whose keys were used to access the control panel. About the inmate who wasn't supposed to be there, transferred just days before the escape. You'll hear the story of a rookie corrections officer who says he noticed something strange days earlier, but was told to keep quiet. The warden who insists the system failed, not the people. We'll go inside the frantic 72-hour manhunt where helicopters circled the swampy edges of Lake Pontchartrain, and one fugitive was found just feet from a daycare center. One was caught posing as a delivery driver. Another didn't make it a full mile before being tackled by an off-duty officer walking his dog. And when one of them was finally cornered, what he said changed the entire direction of the investigation. This isn't just a story about a jailbreak. It's about the cracks in a system that let it happen, and the trail of damage left behind. What happens when the people meant to hold the keys start looking the other way? You'll find out, because this is where the real escape begins. The Orleans Parish Jail isn't new to controversy. For decades, it has been a symbol of dysfunction, a sprawling facility marked by chronic overcrowding, underpaid staff, and a revolving door of leadership. Tucked in the heart of New Orleans, just blocks from the French Quarter, the jail has long struggled to balance safety with a strained budget and political red tape. In 2013, a federal consent decree was issued after footage emerged of inmates wielding weapons, taking drugs, and walking freely between unsecured areas. Since then, little has changed. A recent inspection weeks before the escape flagged major issues: broken locks, blind spots in camera coverage, and staffing shortages. The report made its way to the warden's desk and stopped there. The warden, Earl Batiste, a former state trooper turned corrections chief, had been brought in as a fixer. Stern, calculated, and deeply private, Batiste had earned a reputation for cracking down hard on staff errors, while ignoring systemic ones. His defenders said he was doing the best he could with what he had. His critics called him a politician in uniform. The facility was operating at 140% capacity. Dozens of officers had walked out just months earlier, citing unsafe conditions. Rookies were hired to fill the gaps, some with less than 3 weeks of training. Among the guards that night was Officer Kevin Daly, only 24, recently out of the academy. He'd been written up twice for sleeping on duty, but had been cleared to work overnight surveillance. Daly would later claim he was on break during the time of the escape. But the cameras he was assigned to monitor, they had gone black nearly 40 minutes before the breach. And then there were the inmates. Raymond Stacks LeBlanc, 32 years old, awaiting trial for armed robbery and suspected involvement in a double homicide. Inside the jail, he was known as a shot caller, someone who could get anything from outside with a single message passed through a trustee, a quiet operator, always watching. Tyrese Reek Gibbons, 25, facing weapons charges. Former gang affiliate turned jailhouse preacher, but guards weren't convinced. He had a habit of volunteering for kitchen duty, one of the few areas with access to external loading docks. Malik Vance, 28, convicted of cyber fraud. A tech-savvy former college student with a record of manipulating digital systems. Guards had once found him attempting to rewire a tablet. He claimed he was just trying to check the Wi-Fi signal. And Jamal Tug Harris, 34, career criminal, in and out of the system since age 14. Multiple escape attempts in juvenile facilities. A runner, known for scaling fences and disappearing for hours, even in supervised work programs. All four of them had been moved into adjacent cells just 10 days before the escape. The paperwork oddly had no approval signature. And yet, despite several warnings from staff and a failed audit weeks before, no one acted. City council members had called for reform. Civil rights groups had warned of another disaster waiting to happen. But in a city stretched thin by crime, poverty, and divided politics, the jail remained what it had always been, an afterthought, until that April night when the walls gave way. And the men inside, those who were supposed to be locked down tight, simply walked out. It began with a routine head count, but one by one, names turned into silence. April 14th. Just after 11 p.m., Officer Daly began the standard overnight check. Tier 4, the southeast block, was quiet. Too quiet. Most inmates were asleep, or so he thought. He scanned the rows, clipboard in hand, calling names with barely a glance. LeBlanc. No response. Givens. Nothing. Vance. Harris. Silence. Daly shrugged it off. These inmates often played games during counts. Sometimes they'd stuff pillows under blankets to fake a sleeping body. Sometimes they just didn't care. He marked them present and moved on. The official timeline is full of gaps. What we do know is that by 11:37 p.m., all four cells were empty. Surveillance cameras covering their block had gone offline 46 minutes earlier. A technician would later confirm they had been disconnected manually from the maintenance panel, located one floor down, accessible only with a supervisor's key. At 12:11 a.m., a kitchen door alarm blinked on in the control room. It stayed active for only 23 seconds. Then it was overridden. The escape route wasn't improvised. It was calculated. The group bypassed the main security hallway entirely. Instead, they used a utility shaft behind the mess hall, one normally locked and chained. That night, the lock was missing. In its place, a single twist tie and a wedge of cardboard. From there, they entered the laundry chute. The internal report would later describe it as a known vulnerability, documented, flagged, and ignored. The shaft led to a sub-basement hallway near the loading bay. Records showed a delivery truck had arrived at 12:23 a.m., just outside the bay doors. The driver? Never identified. No security footage exists from that angle. At 12:32 a.m., the back gate opened for approximately 38 seconds. The motion sensor logs show movement, 6 distinct heat signatures passing through. By 12:36 a.m., the group had crossed under the I-10 overpass. A camera from a nearby ATM caught two figures sprinting across a darkened lot, one of them holding what appeared to be a duffel bag. Inside the bag, according to the later testimony, prepaid phones, bus passes, a printed city map, and 4 sets of clothes. It wasn't until 2:04 a.m., nearly 3 hours later, that anyone noticed they were missing. An officer on the morning shift reviewed the logs and spotted the error. He radioed it in. At first, it was disbelief. A second head count was ordered. When the numbers didn't match, panic spread across the facility. By 3:11 a.m., New Orleans police had set up roadblocks at key exits along the interstate. By sunrise, the mayor's office had issued a public statement. 10 inmates in total were gone, 4 masterminds and 6 others who followed. A mass escape, coordinated, precise. But was it really that easy? Or was someone pulling strings from the inside? The first signs pointed toward more than just inmate planning. There was the guard who switched shifts last minute, the security officer whose badge pinged at the loading bay, despite him being marked as off-duty. And then there was the note, found on LeBlanc's bunk. One sheet of paper folded twice. On it, scribbled in pencil, "Too easy, LOL." It was a message, not to the jail, but to the city. This was more than a prison break. This was a challenge. By the morning of April 15, New Orleans was on edge. Local news stations had broken the story by 6:15 a.m., and the press conference that followed brought more questions than answers. 10 inmates had escaped a high-security jail overnight, and officials were only just beginning to piece together how. Police set up immediate roadblocks across Interstate 10, US 90, and the Causeway Bridge. Officers checked every bus station, every Amtrak platform, and patrolled Greyhound terminals on foot. Helicopters circled the lower Ninth, the Garden District, and even the bayous beyond the city's edge. But within 24 hours, the urgency turned to frustration. The fugitives had split up. That much was clear. Cell tower pings revealed brief signals from prepaid phones around Kenner, Baton Rouge, and one strange blip in the Lakeview area. But by the time authorities reached those locations, no one was there. Then came the first serious break, or what looked like one. At 2:07 p.m. on April 15th, Amtrak security in Jackson, Mississippi, flagged a man resembling Devin Vance, one of the escapees. A conductor reported the man had boarded the New Orleans train without a ticket and wore clothes that didn't fit. He had no ID, no luggage, and refused to speak. Local police surrounded the train at the next station. They pulled the man off, cuffed him, and took his fingerprints. He wasn't Vance. He wasn't even from Louisiana. He was a homeless man from Memphis, schizophrenic, harmless, and deeply confused. That false alarm marked a turning point. Public trust wavered. Reporters started digging deeper. On April 16th, a leaked internal document hit the local press. It showed the jail was operating at 63% of its required staffing on the night of the escape. Worse, 2 guards had left their posts 90 minutes before their shift ended. One of them, Officer Lee Morrow, hadn't returned home since. His phone was off. His car was found abandoned outside a storage facility near Metairie. That was red flag number 1. Was Morrow part of the plan? Or had something happened to him? Investigators found no signs of struggle, but inside the car were 2 phones, a burner SIM card, and a duffel bag matching the one seen in ATM footage the night of the escape. The FBI entered the case that evening. Agents began by building a movement map, plotting known associate addresses, past locations of the escapees, and escape paths in a 300-mile radius. They cross-referenced traffic cam footage, gas station receipts, and cell phone towers. The pattern was erratic. Some pings came from Mississippi, others from back in Louisiana. The Bureau also focused on former inmates with recent contact. One name came up more than once: Maurice Bell, a former gang enforcer and cellmate of LeBlanc. Bell had been released just 5 weeks earlier, was working under the table at a body shop in Baton Rouge, and hadn't shown up for work since April 13th. Surveillance on Bell's last known address turned up nothing. The house was empty, stripped of furniture. Neighbors claimed he left in a hurry that weekend. One said he saw Bell loading crates into a white van. The van was never found. Meanwhile, fear spread through New Orleans. Schools near the downtown area increased security. Judges canceled hearings involving known associates of the escapees. One city council member called the jail a disgraceful risk to public safety. And still, no arrests, no sightings. Then on April 17, a UPS driver in St. Charles Parish noticed movement behind an abandoned mechanic shop on his delivery route. He called it in, thinking it might be squatters. By the time deputies arrived, the building was empty, but inside they found sleeping bags, fast food wrappers, and a still warm coffee cup. A hand-drawn map of the city was pinned to the wall. On it, red circles marked bus depots, pawn shops, and a halfway house that had recently burned down. But the most chilling discovery? A list of names. 6 of them were crossed out. 4 remained. And at the bottom, NOPD dirty list, confirmed before April 20th. It wasn't just a manhunt anymore. It was a race to catch them before someone else got hurt. Do you think the guard disappeared willingly, or was he taken? Let us know in the comments. Weeks into the manhunt, frustration was mounting. Leads ran cold. The fugitives seemed to vanish into thin air. But then a new tip came in. Anonymous, vague, but precise. Officers moved on a rural warehouse just outside Covington, a dusty, forgotten place on the outskirts of Saint. Tammany Parish. Inside, they found what looked like a command center, burner phones stacked on crates, stacks of coded maps, and a whiteboard covered in cryptic symbols and timelines. The maps detailed routes through back roads and river crossings, and GPS coordinates that didn't match anything on public maps. Phone analysis revealed multiple encrypted messages exchanged between one of the escapees, Marcus LeBlanc, and a woman identified as his girlfriend. Her phone records showed calls using an obscure encryption app, one developed by a former tech scammer, Julian Reeves, who had been incarcerated in Orleans Parish just months before. Reeves had been released early under controversial circumstances. Authorities now believed Reeves helped design a communication system to avoid detection. As investigators dug deeper, another story emerged, a web of alliances and betrayals. Meanwhile, a viral video from Miami surfaced. It showed a man strikingly similar to inmate Eric Givens, smiling and partying at a nightclub. The clip spread quickly, sparking rumors that some escapees had already fled the state and were living it up. But that lead unraveled fast. Miami police identified the man as a lookalike, a local named Carlos Mendoza with no criminal record, who later said he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. The viral frenzy was a red herring, one that distracted law enforcement and the public. Then came the break they'd been waiting for. A drone had been flying over the Orleans Parish Jail weeks before the escape, unnoticed by most. But the prison's external security team caught it briefly on radar. The drone's operator was never identified. What made it chilling was what the drone was carrying. A small USB drive dropped in the prison yard. When agents retrieved the drive, they found encrypted files, blueprints of the facility, schedules of guard shifts, security camera blind spots, and detailed escape routes marked in neon yellow. The files included audio recordings of phone conversations between certain prison staff and outside contacts. Some suggested bribery, others hinted at outright threats. Among the files was a video message from the mastermind behind the breakout, sent days before the event. The voice was distorted but confident. "This is just the beginning," it said. "The system is broken, and we're taking it back." The evidence pointed to a conspiracy that ran deep, far beyond a simple jailbreak. Questions piled up. Who inside the jail had access to the drone? How many guards were involved? And was Officer Lee Morrow's disappearance part of a larger plan? Or a warning? Each revelation shifted the investigation, forcing law enforcement to rethink everything they thought they knew. The hunt was no longer just for fugitives. It was for answers hidden in the shadows of a corrupt system. The city of Baton Rouge buzzed with tension as police helicopters scanned the highways, chasing a speeding vehicle weaving through traffic. The fugitive inside, Jeremy "Slim" Carter, was finally cornered after a desperate attempt to lose the officers trailing him. When Jeremy was pulled from the car, exhausted and defiant, the manhunt had its first major breakthrough. In custody, Jeremy confessed, his voice low, eyes scanning the room for watchers. He spoke of a plan far more calculated than anyone had imagined. He described a backdoor deal struck months before the escape, a quiet arrangement with a correctional officer whose identity he kept hidden. He said it was supposed to be easy, Jeremy whispered, but he wouldn't say who. Authorities pressed him relentlessly, but Jeremy's lips remained sealed, protecting someone inside the walls. Meanwhile, the leak of secret footage changed the course of the investigation. An inmate, still inside the Orleans Parish Jail, had managed to smuggle out video recordings captured on a hidden phone. The grainy footage showed moments from inside the prison, guards walking past unattended gates, conversations hinting at bribes, and at one point, a shadowy figure slipping keys into an inmate's hand. Public outrage grew as this insider evidence laid bare the extent of negligence and possible collusion. But the biggest shock was yet to come. When investigators analyzed the identities of the escapees, one name raised alarms. The man believed to be escapee number 7, Jason Miller, was not Jason Miller at all. His fingerprints matched a different man entirely, a notorious con artist who had been presumed dead after a prison riot 3 years earlier. This discovery turned the entire manhunt upside down. If Jason Miller was an imposter, what was his true motive? Was the jailbreak a cover for something bigger? As the net closed around the fugitives, the mystery deepened. Questions raced through every investigator's mind. How many were involved in this deception? Was the imposter playing a role in the escape, or was he manipulating the entire operation? The first capture was just the beginning. The real story was only starting to unravel. The investigation peeled back layer after layer, exposing a true stranger than fiction. The man impersonating Jason Miller was not just a clever con artist. He was an identity thief. Using forged documents and stolen identities, he had infiltrated the prison system years earlier, hiding in plain sight while planning his escape. This revelation explained why so many details about the escapees were off. The records, the phone calls, even the initial prisoner head counts had all been manipulated. Meanwhile, the fallout inside the Orleans Parish Jail was swift and severe. The warden, Raymond Graves, was suspended pending an internal investigation. Evidence showed he had ignored numerous warnings about security flaws, staff misconduct, and suspicious activity in the weeks before the breakout. 2 correctional officers, Sergeant Lisa McCall and Officer Damian Price, were arrested on charges of aiding and abetting the escape. Documents and phone records revealed secret meetings, cash transfers, and messages exchanged with some of the fugitives before the jailbreak. The long-suspected drone delivery theory was confirmed. Investigators discovered that the USB drive had been smuggled into the prison via a drone operated by a mysterious third party, coordinating from outside. As the puzzle pieces clicked into place, the authorities obtained a chilling audio recording, an intercepted phone call from one of the still missing escapees. His voice was cold, distant. "We were the bait," he said. "We knew they'd come for us, but it wasn't about running. It was about making them chase shadows." What did he mean by bait? Were the escapees simply pawns in a larger game? Or was this a deliberate distraction from an even greater crime unfolding beyond the prison walls? The case took a new turn, one filled with conspiracy, sacrifice, and questions that still remain unanswered. What do you think they meant by bait? Drop your theory below. The fallout from the Orleans Parish Jail escape sent shockwaves through the city and beyond. Public outrage erupted as citizens demanded accountability, not just from the prison officials, but from the politicians who had long turned a blind eye to the overcrowded, underfunded conditions. Protests erupted outside the courthouse and city hall, with chants calling for justice and reform. The mayor faced intense scrutiny. Headlines blasted her administration for years of neglect and corruption. Pressure mounted until key officials resigned or were replaced. Amid the chaos, law enforcement pressed on. 2 more inmates were captured in separate raids. One found hiding in a rundown motel on the outskirts of the city. The other caught after an anonymous tip led police to a remote cabin deep in the swamps. Their confessions revealed further details about the escape plan and confirmed that a small network of outside accomplices had helped supply money, vehicles, and safe houses. In response, the city allocated millions of dollars to overhaul jail security, installing new surveillance technology, hiring additional staff, and tightening protocols. But the community remained deeply divided. Some viewed the escapees as folk heroes, people who had exposed a broken system that kept men and women in cages, with little chance of redemption or fairness. Others saw them as dangerous criminals who exploited their own failures for freedom. The story of the Orleans Parish Jail escape became more than just a headline. It sparked a debate about justice, corruption, and the fragile line between law and chaos. As the dust settled, one thing was clear. This was a story that would not be forgotten anytime soon. 3 escapees remain at large, ghosts slipping through the cracks of a city still reeling from their disappearance. One is believed to have crossed international borders, vanishing without a trace. The chilling message they left behind, "Too easy," echoes through the streets, a haunting reminder that the story is far from over. Was it a warning to those who dared to pursue them? Or a bold challenge daring the world to catch what seemed unstoppable? The questions linger. The answers remain just out of reach. If you think there's more to this story, more secrets waiting to be uncovered, like this video. And don't forget to subscribe, because we're just getting started. What do you think happened next? Share your theories below. Subscribe and turn on the bell. Our next case reveals how a single tweet led to the capture of an FBI's most wanted fugitive.